Brought to you in association with Grendel Press. This is Werewolf the Podcast, a serial killer drama.
Hello, and welcome once again to Werewolf the Podcast. I am your host, Wildy Beast, the Werewolf, and I am currently telling you my life story. We're on episode 11. Hopefully you've caught the other 10. That's probably a really good idea. For those who haven't, I'm a werewolf. I've been captured by the army, and they're interrogating me and asking me certain questions about my life. Now, I don't normally get to talk about these, so this is great. I'm showing off. I'm being asked about stuff from my past by the chief. The chief is the interviewer. And he wants to know, do I feel any kind of guilt or feel bad or stuff for my life? So here we go. The guilt of the werewolf. Here's the truth. Forget all that feeling guilty and sparkly romantic bullshit of the Twilight nonsense sagas. I am a lost soul who has to kill because he's been cursed to do so. Nah. I love killing and murder. I love the terror and the fear that I create. I love the hunt and the capture. The torture is, dare I say it, I might seem crass, my particular favourite. I'm not one of these poor tortured souls who hate themselves and all that bollocks. I'm fully into being the beast and enjoying it all. I get really annoyed with all these films and books that have come out portraying us werewolves like these cuddly, misunderstood creatures that really do not want to cause harm. Those poor animals that want to lock themselves away on turning and keep the innocent human world safe. No, fuck that. You humans are a plague, and I'm one of the answers. A real superhero in the fight for depopulation and saving the Earth. Thanos has it correct with that there are just too many of you, which needs to change. Also, you're all selfish little bundles of emotional hatred and really do not need to exist, in my humble opinion. Sorry if I've caused you any offence. As I say, it's only my opinion. None taken, said the chief. Please continue. Now, some of you get it, but some of you are like, oh, how can you kill the inhumanity of it all? A stupid statement from humanity's lips. Bollocks to you. That's what humanity does when it gets power. It kills and enslaves other humans. How did those 1%ers get to the top? Through being violent and threatening. Their ancestors were the conquerors and the killers. Then I hear the cry, oh, violence and strength are all wrong, it's bullying and we should not do it. Well, that's bollocks too. Just go and try a simple thing like using your freedom to do something like not following the system's rules. If you refuse to follow the laws and the rules of the society that you are in, what happens? Society gets pissed off, and finally they call in the authorities or take measures themselves. You are violent creatures at heart. The punks had it right. If you are a cheesemonger and someone comes in and pisses on your cheese, you will probably want to hurt them. You won't just be able to piss on their cheese. That's not freedom. If the police arrive at your urinary party, they will demand that you follow their instructions. If you do not follow their instructions, they will then use a required amount of force to make you comply with their wishes. I know. I've seen it on TV. Yes, you see, they will use a required level of force to get you to comply with their wishes. Yes, they use violence against you. Oh, and please do not sugarcoat it and say that they use just the necessary amount to get you to comply. They use force. Enough said. And if you struggle and do not want to do what they ask, then they use more force and then steal your fucking freedom, stuffing you in a small cage. At this, I tapped a finger on the bars of my current residence. Upscale that to countries. The original American operation to free Iraq, I would laugh at this point, to free the people of Iraq from the horrors bestowed on them by dictator Saddam Hussein, was called Operation Iraqi Liberation. They even got to the point of making up the embroidered badges of the acronym. Did you spot the acronym? Yes, the original operation was OIL, oil. God bless us all and free that oil, yeehaw, from a man that they put in office. Yeah, they put him there. The Americans and their allies went in under false pretenses and bombed and killed the shit out of loads of people for oil. It was not about their freedom and democracy that this would bring to the Iraqi population, but the oil that the regime was making too expensive. I've noticed that they went in and defended those people by attacking them. It's amazing how defense can become attack. What does this show us? That we use violence. Countries kill and murder if they want to get something they want, or if they are threatened in any way. Threatened? No one's threatened America properly for a long time. Well, I suppose they have. Well, I suppose they haven't. Well, I suppose they have. Well, anyway, violence is only wrong for you lower forms of life, the general populace. There's a reason why the forefathers gave you guns. That reason was if the government started to become a bunch of bastards, the populace could put them down. Those that do not need to understand violence and its use, in your case, you, for those, it's all wrong and you shouldn't do it. But if you are America, and I'm not talking about the American general populace, I'm talking about the American government or the people behind the American government, and you need the price of oil to be reduced on the world stage, then bomb away. Once killing innocents, then use the excuse that you're protecting your people. Your people. Oh, and the further justification that you're saving the population of the country that you're bombing blows my mind. Fairness and human rights are all there to serve your betters. They con you into believing that the world is a safe and just place. Again, bollocks. It's not. As I've said before, nothing's fair. It's not fair you're not a werewolf, is it? I release you from that. You are not living. You exist under the cruel masters that control you financially. You are taking the crumbs off their tables. You are worse than slaves. Working for wages that are not enough to support you and yours properly. That's worse than slavery. If you were a slave, at least your masters would hold you to some inherent value. Just think of those good people who first thought that we could get rid of slavery and give the people freedom. Capitalism. I'm not knocking capitalism. If you read Mr. Adam Smith's book, then you learn that if we did it the way that he says, then capitalism would be very effective. But we don't. We let big companies survive. We don't let them fail. I don't think many people get past page 433. Read it from there and see the truth behind what capitalism really should be like, and we'd all want it. So someone sat down and thought about the slave situation. Right, these slaves cost us huge amounts of money. We have to feed them and can keep them somewhere if they get sick. They can't work, so that then costs us money if they're sick. And if they get so sick that they die, then they lose their value. A slave is worth something economically. You are not. So someone sat there and cleverly thought, let's give them freedom. Here's how it went in my eyes. Picture the scene. A group of evil slave owners, top hats and mustachios, somewhere in the world sat around a table eating veal and that goose pate thing that is made so cruelly from turning geese inside out. You can imagine them already, a right bunch of idiots. One of them puts his Persian white cat down on the table, turns to another and with a thick but very camp semi-German accent, because I'm not very good at it, says, Hans, oh Hans, it is awful what is happening to me at the salt mine. The slaves are doing that work there, and I am having to feed and shelter them and their families, and they can't work if they are pregnant, sick, or under the age of 4. Oh, I am so sad. What do I do, Hans? Hans takes away his large cigar from his lips, which comes away with his fake nose glasses and a set of eyebrows, and he looks Gruber in the eyes. Well, Gruber, I have been playing with this notion of freedom. What we do is we say to all the slaves, you are free. You can go and do what you want. You can just leave. Gruber looks aghast at this statement, thinking that his fine friend has lost the plot and no longer wants to exploit people, but now wants to show them how much he cares and how such a great man he truly is. But Hans, I don't understand. How will you get all those cheap t-shirts made in your sweatshops? How will you get people to make things for 16 hours a day if you give them freedom? Well, Gruber, I have been thinking carefully about this. What I have decided to do is I will pay them for the hours that they give me. So I will take their most precious commodity, which in reality is their time. It is finite, and I will pay them money to spend that time doing a job. But, and this is the good bit, I will not actually pay them enough to make their lives generally any better than it is now. To this he smiled, flicking the ash off the end of his plastic melted fake cigar. Gruber sits there thinking for a while and resumes stroking his pussy. Wow, did that really just turn into some kind of English farce? And looks confused. So, you are going to give them a choice to work for you? Why would they? Asked Gruber. Well, here's the rub, Hans. They have to. They have not got enough money to go to other places, and they need the job because now they are paying for their own home, food, and health care. I have given them the freedom to choose if they want to come and do the job that they were just doing as slaves, and as slaves, it used to cost me a fortune to look after them, manage and control them. All this slavery stuff costs money with having to organise their lives for them and all that stuff. Never mind the initial cost and layout to buy them. Do you know how much it costs to capture and bring in slaves? So basically, they think they are free because they get to choose which slave master they work for. Hans smiles. See? Now you're getting it. And on top of that, they have to organise their own lives and look after themselves and their families, adds Gruber. Oh yes, although we could put in a political system which can manipulate, this will let the now free people think they are getting some control over the decisions made for them. It will give them what feels like a bit of control over the political system, even though, in reality, we will control and manipulate that too. You see how that works, says Hans. They will then have someone to blame for things that happen. We will be doing the controlling and the evil stuff, but the politicians will get the blame. Politicians will be voted in and out of office regularly, so it looks like the system is changing, but in reality, we will always be there in control, never changing, manipulating the system and blaming the politicians ourselves. Also, we have not paid for the people as pieces of property, so if they die, it costs us nothing. We don't even have to pay to bury them. continued Gruber. Yes, and on top of that, when they die, you will get a queue of more people waiting for their job because we make them believe that there is not enough work. Yes, I like that term, work, for them. So they will compete for the garbage jobs that pay just enough to survive, while we as the company owners will get the largest part of the profits that they have created and say that this is okay to do because we get this, we're giving them the jobs. They will thank us. Mental. And my favourite part is we will then tax them using the political system that we have set up so that they have to give us money to provide them with things like pensions and roads and schools and all that stuff they will expect, while we will use loopholes in the system because we are rich, ruthless and reticent to relinquish any cash to not pay any tax. We get to keep all our money and use the systems that they are paying for to produce our workers. They will pay for the roads our freight will run on. They will pay for the education that our workers will require. They will pay for half-useful healthcare system that is just good enough to keep them at work if they become ill. We will pocket all our income. They will pay for things we need for our businesses to work. Amazing, huh? Sorry about the accents. It's not really my thing. You are grist for the mill, and if you were to die tomorrow, they would quickly find another body to fill the empty slot. The more you separate from this earthly coil, the better. My only issue in killing and murdering is keeping myself discreet in my actions. I don't really want to get caught. That's why I tend to go on holiday to the more chaotic parts of the world. I like to go where a group of people or a tiny village going missing is not really an issue. The only problem with this is it tends to be people who don't really deserve it. Deserve it. As much as those of you who have, first world issues in your privileged homes. But in reality, a cruel and unusual death is a cruel and unusual death wherever it is in the world. You might be wondering why you don't hear more of these missing people and murders in the papers or in the media. It tends to be hushed up a little if possible, or blamed on something else. Or it may just be reported that these people have gone missing, not that they have died. I am incredibly hard to find by modern policing methods. I don't have an MO, as they say. I don't have a motive, or often any link to the people I kill. That's a lesson I learnt pretty early on in my killing. That's a whole story in itself. Even in these modern times, the handy thing about being a werewolf is that any DNA that I leave at the site doesn't really make any sense to forensic teams. It must be that my WAG DNA is different or something. Or maybe they just don't believe it. Also, I'm pretty good at this killing shit by now. You feel no guilt then? Really? That seems, well... I can't believe it, the chief said. That's a rhetorical question, by the way, Will. I don't think I want to hear any more. I also told him I realised that I'd been under the scrutiny of CCTV cameras throughout the interrogation. I knew that they had many angles over me, and the realisation that I was in an impossible position. I knew they would burn me up with their surrounding fire throwers whenever they wanted. My current fear was that they had vast amounts of evidence linking me to killings and stuff. They had me here by myself where no one knew or cared that I existed, and they basically could do whatever they wanted with me. I told him that I thought that I might be in the cage for the rest of my life, and how at the age of 24, that seemed like an awful fucking long time. These visits and chats by the chief went on day to day. Then one fateful morning, the chief, as I now called him, came and sat in the usual spot, and I asked him how I could help today. He said, "Well, actually, Will, we're done." He leaned forward and looked me in the eyes. "So what happens now?" I asked. "Well, we checked out your story and appreciated your honesty. Now the powers that be are deciding on the next step." "Right, well, what the fuck does that mean?" I questioned. "Well, I will be completely open with you, Will. We are having a bunch of scientists who want to look into you and study you. We also have the intelligence agencies interested in you as an operative. That is, if we can control you in some way, which I doubt. On the other hand, we might be required to terminate you. I don't really know." He put his chin in his hand and gave me a half-hearted smile. To be honest, the things you've done over the years have been horrific, so I don't rate your chances. No one is going to let you go now, are they? Seriously, if you were in our position and had this threat to the public, would you let it go? So I'm afraid it's not looking great for you. And to be honest, if you die, I won't be unhappy. I nodded silently and realised that this was it. My final days were here. I think you're going to be given some offers that the only problem that we have is we can't trust you. You don't have a moral compass. You have no respect for life. We can only see you doing what we want by pandering to your need to live. We also know that you will only thrive with your freedom, though. Some of the interviews that you've done, so how do we use that to control you? How do we use your selfish tendencies for good? It's impossible. He paused. What do you think? Got any ideas on how we can use you, and in doing so, not have to kill you? I sat back and thought. This wasn't the way I expected to go. I had to make myself useful to these people, and he knew it. I also liked the fact that they pandered to my ego slightly by offering me a choice in my outcomes. It was a nice touch. Well, I know you've put a tracker device in my shoulder and that you probably have put them in other places on my body as well. So, if I were useful to you, then you'd be able to keep tracking that stuff, I said. No, that's not the answer. We already know that your body forces foreign objects out of it when in a recovery process. We already know that somehow you're keeping those trackers in you on purpose. I mean, you're a fucking marvel, Will. Okay. What if I promise you that I will be a good little pet dog, that I will do as you ask as long as you allow me to have certain liberties in the world? I mean, we can compromise on how I live my life. I will work for you. You will give me my freedom and allow me to live my life without too much interference. I actually feel like I would enjoy the work that you offer, and that if it keeps me interested and excited, and that's through, the use of my bad behaviour, then the bad behaviour in real life might be reduced. Now, I can't promise that. I will always be good, though I will become less apparent. How does that sound to you, I asked. Well, I don't know, Will. It is not for me to say. It is something that I can pass on to the high powers and see what their decision is at the end of the day. Once more, they all packed up and walked away. They left me in my tiny cell. My mind wandered to the times I killed, the times I remembered. One story stood out from my teenage years, so I allowed my mind to wander and relive that time. I remembered this particular scenario so well because the human's reaction was pretty unexpected. That's the end of the episode. Thanks for listening. Buy me a coffee in the description below. You can buy my book if you want. That'd be really nice. And remember, the werewolf loves you. Bye.
Brought to you in association with Grendel Press. This is Werewolf the Podcast, a serial killer drama.